Hey dudes, and welcome back to the Bants. As always, I am your host, the Bants, and it's the middle of the week, so it's time for our second What's Happening in Fashion this week. So let's just get right into it. And first up, we have our headlines for the day. And in our first headline, and rather unfortunate news, it was recently announced about a week ago that Hubert de Givenchy has finally passed away. Now, obviously, nobody's immortal, and he definitely lived a very long time, which not many people get the chance to do. But even so, it is still a very sad event because we are now losing another of the large, well known, renowned fashion house names that has really brought a lot of history to fashion as we know it in the last many, many decades. So, of course, best wishes to his family. And if you do want to learn a little bit more about him, Hypebeast did a nice little write-up on some of his more well-known accolades, so I'll definitely link that in the description as well. But at the very least, thank you for everything, Hubert. You will definitely be missed. Then in our second headline, Jun Takahashi of Undercover fame just announced that he will no longer be doing women's fashion shows. And honestly, I think this is probably for the better. Now, before all the lady Undercover fans get alarmed, let me just say first and foremost, he's only getting rid of the presentations, the fashion shows themselves. No actual word as of now if he's actually going to do away with women's wear in general, although that's what I thought the article said originally, but it's okay, I read it wrong too. But going back to the matter at hand, his reasoning is actually very interesting. Based on what he said, Jun said that he felt making women's extravagant yet wearable fashion was just a little too hard for him to present, whereas it's not that hard for him to do with menswear, which in all honesty does make a lot of sense if you ever really follow Takahashi's background. He's definitely a menswear designer at heart, and I really do think that him doing more of what he did at Pitti Uomo is really good for us, but also really good for the industry. And with all the news around how menswear is now going to be outselling women's wear, or at least projected to, I think this is definitely a step in the right direction. Alright, and with that, let's move on to our art stories for the day. And first up, Hypebeast actually put out a very nice article going around the history of Pow Wow, everybody's favorite graffiti exhibition. And honestly, I think they did a really good job with it. They go over the people behind it, the reasoning by why they did it, and kind of a little bit of the overall history of it. So if you have an interest in history of graffiti, history of art in general, I would definitely give this a read. And if you haven't seen the newest Pow Wow murals, I would definitely check those out as well. Then Jeff Koons showed off some of his newest paintings and sculptures for Art Basel in Hong Kong. So if you're interested in his work or want to know more about his work in general, I would check these out. And lastly, the Paddle 8 street art auction just finished last week, and it really did absolutely amazing, and some of the prices these pieces went for, I would definitely first of all check out the pieces, but some of the prices they went for was absolutely incredible, and just goes to show how much graffiti and street art is really becoming seen as something more, as a fine art, and really should be taken seriously. So definitely worth checking out as well. Alright, and then moving on into fashion now, New York Sunshine showed off their newest collection, and in all honesty, this has to be probably one of the dumbest lookbooks I've ever seen in my life. I don't know whose idea this was, but it definitely wasn't a good one. I mean, really. Whose idea was it to take somebody who has never worked hard labor in their life, dress them up in clothes that prove they've never worked hard labor in their life, and then take them to what seems to be a warehouse district and just do shit with pieces that happen to be laying around? It's just fucking terrible. And as if that wasn't bad enough, the clothes themselves just feel like really fucking cheap ripoffs of Richardson hardware. And even the tactical utility pieces are just so poorly done. You can definitely tell they have no functionality and were definitely made by somebody who looks like they'd wear something like this. And by that I mean someone who's never worked hard labor but for some reason wants to emphasize that they have. So if you need a good laugh to brighten your day up, I would definitely check out this collection here. Then Rogue Territory introduced their newest diffusion line, Rogue Territory A, and honestly, I don't really know how I feel about it. For those of you unaware of Rogue Territory, it's definitely one of the better American-made workwear brands out there right now, and definitely worth checking out if you're interested in that sort of thing. But what it seems like what they're trying to do here with the Diffusion line is try and make it a little bit more, I guess you could say, streetwear, but maybe the best way of putting it is maybe just a little bit more minimal, contemporary. At least that's how it seems. Sure, there are a couple more, for the lack of a better term, racy pieces here, in the sense that they have different colors, different textiles, different textures than stuff you'd normally see in Rogue Territory wear, and I really do think that those pieces shine through compared to everything else, and those make the brand, at least this Diffusion brand, worth looking at. However, that aside, the more basic, the more minimalistic pieces here really don't seem too far of a stretch from what Rogue Territory already was, and I don't think they're necessary to be part of a Diffusion line. In fact, I could really see this Diffusion line being another part of any Rogue Territory season, just aside from the fact that it doesn't have any denim in it for the most part. So how do I feel about it overall? I think it's still a little too early to actually say, although I really want to see where Carl ends up taking this, because it could turn out to be something actually very interesting. But either way, best of luck to him and the rest of Rogue Territory. Then 10 Deep showed off their newest Spring/Summer 2018 lookbook, and God, is it crazy. You know, for all the streetwear brands out there that try and do something new, something different, something crazy, you really have to give it up to 10 Deep for always really pushing that boundary, and fuck did they push that boundary here. But starting off with the more basic pieces, overall they did a pretty decent job. The logos are very nice, the graphics are pretty on point, the designs overall pretty streetwear inspired, and definitely nothing too bad overall. But then moving on to the more extreme pieces, I really do have to commend them on the smiley face pullover design, and I also do really like that pink fleece jacket, although I am very bummed to see that there aren't actually poodle heads in it. So shoutouts as always to 10 Deep, thank you guys for keeping the creativity alive. Then Louis Vuitton showed off their newest editorial, and unfortunately it's definitely more miss than hit here. This collection can really be summed up in just two ideas, and that is men's contemporary wear and definitely surf wear clothing vibes. And unfortunately the two just don't really mix here that well. Sure, the contemporary side Louis Vuitton really has down for the most part, and I'm not really complaining about it aside from the fact that it's Louis Vuitton and it's just butt fucking expensive. But on the flip side, outside of just the printed button-ups, which for the most part I think are very well done, the rest of the surfwear collection here just not that great. It's just not cohesive with the rest of the collection. It just feels so out of place, and I feel like they were just really trying too hard to push a vibe that they really don't have any business pushing, because this is not their style and they should really just stay away from it. So yeah, unless you're looking for a couple new really nice, bright, vivid, patterny button-ups, I would just pass on this lookbook altogether. Then brand Kolovrat showed off their Fall/Winter 2018 collection in their newest runway show, and I think they did a very nice job with it. In a world where all men's fashion shows, or at least 99% of them, are pretty much dedicated to ready-to-wear, seeing Kolovrat here doing something a little bit more artistic, a little bit more experimental, was definitely a breath of fresh air. And even though, yes, a couple of the pieces here are definitely a little bit too experimental to be worn in day-to-day, I still have to say there are a couple fits in here that were very spot on, very well done, and even aside from that, a couple of the ideas that came out of here that can be used as inspiration, very nice overall, and I really enjoyed it. So here's to Kolovrat, excellent job you guys, and I can't wait to see what you guys do next. Then brand No Wave showed off their newest pieces from their Spring/Summer 2018 collection, and nope. Man, who would have thought that losing your designer to sexual abuse charges would make your brand go to shit? I wouldn't. And lastly, the North Face showed off their two newest collections, their Black Series and their Aluminum collection, and honestly, I think they did a pretty decent job with both overall. Starting first with the Aluminum collection, this is their take on doing a bunch of metallic pieces, and that seems to be pretty popular nowadays if you checked out any of New York Fashion Week's runway shows. But unlike most of the pieces at those Fashion Week shows, I think the North Face actually did a pretty good job here. The designs are still on point, still technical enough to be considered North Face pieces. The metallic coatings themselves are very well done and not overly bright or excessive to the point that they seem gaudy. Pretty much, I think if you're looking for a nice silver tech jacket, this would be a great place to start. Then moving on to their Black Series pieces, this is the North Face's attempt at doing more techwear inspired, urban exploration type pieces, and although they don't really work here, I think the ideas do come through. First off, I don't feel like all these pieces really get that urban tech vibe to them. And that's not necessarily a problem, but that's kind of what they were going for here. So unless you like the pieces individually, they're not very cohesive overall. Aside from that, the materials themselves seem a little bit on the cheaper side, and I'm not really a huge fan of that either. But what I really do like here are some of the ideas they're attempting to push through. Sure, they're not done great, but this is really their first attempt at doing something like this, so I'm willing to give them a pass for now. But if they can really develop these ideas a little bit more, refine them a little bit more, make them a little bit more cohesive, and then just use nicer quality materials, I think that they actually have something good on their hands, or at least potentially so. Alright, and with that, let's finally move on to our articles for the day. And first up, Highstabiety put out a very nice list of 5 brands they consider will keep you Wakandan fresh. Outside of the absolutely downright stupid name for the article here, it is actually a very decent article overall and worth looking into if you're really into those heavily African inspired designs and designers. And there really are some decent names here on the list and some people worth checking out. So if you're into that sort of thing, I would definitely give this a read. Then Heddles did a quick little breakdown of what they consider 5 tanneries you need to know about. So if you're really into leatherworking, leather crafting, or just knowing where your leather comes from, I would definitely give this a quick look over. Then Heddles did their 2-part overview of the Liberty Fairs and Capsule Expos. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about some new Americana, some new workwear brands, I would definitely give this a look. And lastly, Quartzy took a look at Levi Jeans' newest revolution, where they will now be using lasers to do their jeans as far as fading goes, as opposed to using human workers and chemicals. And if you're interested in the technology aspect of laser distressed denim, which is not relatively new, but still a new concept to Levi's here, I would definitely give this a check out as well, especially if you're a fan of denim in general. Alright guys, and with that, we've reached the end of our second whiff of the week. As always, I hope you guys have enjoyed. And also, as always, if you want to see any more images that I didn't include here or want to read any of the articles I talked about today, I've linked everything down in the description below. And thank you guys, as always, for watching these videos and supporting my channel. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or just want to talk fashion in general, feel free to hit me up in the comments. I'm always willing to talk fashion. And once again, one last thank you to you guys as usual. Hope you guys have a good couple days, and as always, until next time.